Update. I believe my parents resent me for starting my own family. Original post. I had somewhat of a revelation this weekend. I'm still processing how I feel about it and considering if I should confront my parents. Anyway, I, 40 male, came from a big family. I'm the second oldest of 9 kids. My older sister Jane is just a year older than me. There was a 6-year gap between me and the next sibling. Then my mom had a kid every 2 to 3 years. Since Jane and I were the oldest, we always helped with the little kids and the chores around the house. In fact, it was common for my parents and other adults to refer to us as Jane and Opie and the kids. It's like Jane and I were not considered children. It's more like we were 2 other adults living in the house. We were homeschooled, so we were home all the time. Part of my job is that I would wake up, make breakfast for the kids, then get them started with their school or activities before I started my own schoolwork. Jane would sleep in because she was more of a night owl, and it was her job to help at night with the baby because there was always a baby. Jane and I did most of the chores around the house. We took turns either cleaning the kitchen or doing the laundry, of which there was a lot. I did all the guy stuff, like mowing the yard and taking out the trash. As I got older, I would delegate some of these chores to my younger brothers, but it was still my responsibility to make sure it got done. Once I was old enough to drive, I would run errands and take the kids everywhere. I can't tell you how many times I would take the kids to things like playdates or doctor's appointments. I would often tuck the kids in bed and tell them stories. To me, these things were all just normal, but looking back on it, I was more like a second dad to the kids than a brother. Jane and I did have a lot of freedom as teenagers to go out with our friends if the chores were done. We didn't have cell phones back then. If we wanted to go out, we would just tell our parents we were going, and they didn't care, as long as we were back by the next morning. I moved out when I was 20, but I still spent a lot of time at my parents', and one of my younger siblings was almost always at my house. One brother, JJ, pretty much lived with me since he was 14 because he and our mom didn't get along. When JJ was 17, he got in a wreck and he called me instead of calling dad because I was just the one who handled those kinds of things. During all of this time, my parents always talked about how important it was for Jane and I to help with the kids because they were so busy with their ministry. I can't count how many times I had to drop what I was doing to take care of something because mom or dad were counseling someone. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling. I hope I have painted an accurate picture of my childhood. Let's move on. I had not really dated much, but when I was 25, I met and started dating Anne. We fell in love fast and got married less than a year later. My younger siblings love Anne. She's a great cook and hostess. Our house became the hangout spot. My younger siblings even started calling her Mama Anne, something they still do to this day. We have now been married 15 years and have 2 kids of our own. My mom and Jane, though, did not like Anne. Jane and Anne get along okay now, but Anne and my mom do not have a good relationship. I never understood why, but I think I have finally figured out it's because they see it as Anne having taken me away. As Anne and I focused on our relationship and started a family, I spent less and less time doing things for my parents. My dad liked Anne at first, but over the past few years, their relationship has soured. Throughout the years, my dad has made comments to me about keeping up my responsibilities. One time he called me about one of the younger kids who had gotten in a fight with my mom and said, "You better get your brother and change his attitude. It's not okay how he treated your mom, and you were going to make him apologize." A few years ago, Anne and I set some boundaries with my parents, telling them we were not going to raise or discipline their kids. Our home is always open to my siblings, but we no longer let my parents try and use us to straighten them up. My parents have not taken this well. About a year ago, Anne injured her foot and couldn't walk for a while. Just as she was getting better, I was diagnosed with kidney disease, which then turned into kidney failure. I've had several surgeries with another one coming in a few weeks. It's been a rough year, and during this time, my parents have not only refused to help, they have actively made things harder for us. Things like promising to help with our kids but then canceling at the last minute, usually because something ministry-related came up. Then recently, my sister-in-law who lives in another state had a baby, and my mom has been staying with her and helping for the past 6 weeks. My sister-in-law has said that mom is a godsend and is so wonderful. My dad has gone to help every weekend. This hurts me because my mom wouldn't give us a single night to help with our youngest when he was born. Anyway, I'm sorry this post has turned out longer than I thought it would. I needed to get some of this off my chest. This weekend, I was talking to another sister and telling her how I don't understand why mom and dad don't treat me like they do the rest of the kids. Even Jane. It's like I'm not one of their children. And it just kind of hit me that they resent me for getting married and starting my own family and leaving them to raise their own kids. Part of me is relieved to finally realize why they treat me like they do, and part of me is sad. I'm kind of scared about this upcoming surgery, and I really wish I had a parent I could talk to about it. But I don't feel like I have parents, just some people that I co-parented my siblings with. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Your parents used religion as an excuse not to parent. Extremely bad parenting, and it was wrong expecting you to do the job they should have been doing. Your parents need a wake-up call about their selfishness. Hit them hard with what they have done wrong, then go no contact, as you don't need that kind of negativity in your life. That's hard to hear, but you might be right. Those selfish, horrible people who used and enslaved you do not deserve to have a relationship with you. How nice it would be if their congregation heard about how they treated you as a slave and now won't lift a finger to help you. How unchristian of them. You should write a book. Maybe your younger siblings can help you, where your own parents failed you. I had a friend in a family of 10 kids. They were very religious, but not homeschooling. I'm not even against homeschooling. It's just that a lot of parents don't follow through and just use the kids for errands at home. Anyway, the 2 oldest were the caretakers for the rest. The oldest left the family and they have cut her off. I think you are absolutely correct in assessing their view. I was the oldest of 9 in a homeschooling family, and I'm honestly surprised that Opie was just as much a caretaker as Jane. In many families like mine, and I knew a bunch of them, many even bigger than mine, the oldest male is a magical unicorn being who can do whatever he wants and be supported, while the oldest female deals with absurd expectations of living their lives as a martyr for the sake of their family's well-being. I don't wish the experience Opie described on anyone. However, the thing I noticed that surprised me is that, at least his parents were equally crappy to both Opie and Jane. I'm so sorry, Opie. It's also unfair. Your parents basically cranked out babies for you and Jane to raise, while they got to look pious with their ministry. But at least your siblings love and value you. You and Anne sound wonderful. Anne is the most amazing person ever. I love her so much. I think she is more of a mom to my siblings than our mom ever was. Now for the update. Thanks to everyone who engaged with my last post. It has been therapeutic. This post is a brief update and then I will answer some questions. So, I spoke with my wife Anne about it last night. I said something along the lines of, I've realized that my parents resent me for starting my own family and not helping them as much, and that is why they treat me so differently. And I think you've been trying to gently tell me this for years, but I was too dense to get it. We were sitting in a bed at a time, and she leaned over and patted me on the head and said, "You are so pretty." I laughed for like 10 minutes. It was a great emotional release. A lot of you said she sounds wonderful, and she really is. I just can't express how much I love her. About Jane, my older sister. Jane did get married and start a family about 2 years after I did. Jane and I had a falling out and didn't speak for several years, but we are okay now, just not very close. Our falling out was more about religion than anything. She is very religious like my parents, while I am not. I am religious and we attend church, but it's not our whole life like it is for my parents and Jane. Younger siblings. The youngest is 22, so they are all adults now. The second to the youngest passed away several years ago, so there are 8 of us now. I am very close with all of my younger siblings. They still come hang out at my house all the time and they are all great aunts and uncles to my kids. All of them, including Jane, are upset with how my parents treated me this past year. Help with my kids. While I am disappointed in my parents for not helping, I do not need their help. Anne and I have close friends, plus we both have siblings that help. Anne's parents live far away, but they help when they can. We really are okay, and feel very blessed and loved with all the help we have received. Therapy. Part of my kidney treatment plan includes access to a therapist, and I love her. She has been great in helping me learn to live with an illness. I'm not sure if she's the right person to speak with about my parents, but I will ask her and see if she can refer someone if not. I will wait until after my surgery to bring this up, as I need to just focus on that right now. Setting boundaries. When I say my parents won't help, it's not that they say they won't help. It's that they offer to help, and then they either bail at the last minute or they change the plan so much that it causes Ann and I a lot of stress. A few months ago, Ann was sick and my mother offered to pick our kids up from school. It's a long story, but she kept changing things and making it very complicated, and my youngest ended up being left alone for a little while, and he got scared. After that, I had a harsh talk with my parents and told them how disappointed I was in them, and how I needed to focus on my health, and they were making things worse. I told them they are not allowed to take my kids anywhere, and they are not allowed to just drop by at my house, and in fact, they were not even allowed to offer to help. Because my mom doesn't take no for an answer and will nag until she wears me down. My parents were mad about this, but all 7 of my siblings took my side and rallied about me, and so my parents have respected that so far. Going no contact. A lot of people recommended going no contact, but I don't want that. I still love my parents, even though they have not been great parents. My kids love them too, and I don't want to take that away. They're good grandparents when they show up. I don't think my parents are awful people. I think they had this vision of how they wanted to have this big family and this big ministry, and I think they just didn't realize the responsibilities they put on Jane and I. I have spoken to them in the past and expressed how it was messed up that they put so much on us as kids, and they have apologized. Putting my parents on blast at their church. Several people recommended going to their church and telling people how they have treated me. You don't understand this church. They would praise my parents for putting God and the ministry above everything else. These super religious people are crazy. I guess that's it for now. My surgery is in less than 2 weeks, so I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to put this thing with my parents on the back burner, and later I will decide what, if anything, I'm going to do. Thanks again to everyone for your comments. It has really helped me work through some feelings. Make sure you have a will set up, and your wife is POA. And that in no way if you pass after the surgery, that your parents can claim anything of yours, including access to your children. Great advice. We got a will a few years ago. Good. I'm sorry that you have to think about that, but at least you're prepared. I hope the surgery goes well and you feel better. Not a therapist myself, but rather integrated with someone dealing with issues. You may want to bring this up with her just to give her background information and get the referral process started. A simple, I know we don't have time to deal with this now, but some background information on me is ... Once we get to a slightly less busy time, I'd like to get a referral to someone appropriate for this issue. Knowing about these issues may impact how they deal with your current issues, and referrals can take forever to process. Okay, I will do that. I'm meeting with her on Monday. I will bring it up. Thanks. I'm going to say something you should repeat to your therapist. Having part-time good parents mean they were all the time bad parents. Now, just repeat that to your therapist and they will understand. Let me explain. If you're a parent, you don't get time off or get to turn it off just because it's inconvenient. Think about your own life. You have a serious illness. Have you ever slacked off in your care of your kids? Probably not. It might have changed how you did things, but you were still a good parent 99% of the time. 1% for times when we mess up. I hate to say this, but those good parent moments were nothing more than show. It's a form of gaslighting. Last story. My mom invoiced me and my sister for the expenses of raising us. Our household always revolved around money, even though my mom made more than enough money and we are not struggling by any means. She complained about every single thing she had to buy for us. Everything. Food, clothes, medical expenses, toys, laptops and phones, school costs, everything. We always knew exactly how much we were costing her, and we didn't dare ask for unnecessary things like leisure activities or expensive toys or hobby supplies. We started working very young, and she manipulated and guilted us to give her all the money we earned to pay off what we owed. When I turned 18, she completely cut me off financially, but kindly offered to let me rent my bedroom out for her and sent me an invoice of every cent I've ever cost her, totaling over $700,000. She billed me for Christmas and birthday presents. She even billed me for her medical expenses for the pregnancy and delivery. and wanted me to back pay rent to live in the house from birth. She did the same to my sister 2 years later when she turned 18. We were supposed to pay her back over time, starting the day we turned 18. Both of us were still dealing with a lot of internalized guilt from her constant manipulation, so we actually did pay for a while. Aside from necessary expenses, our entire paychecks were going to her. We rented our bedrooms in her house, and she separated her food, cleaning supplies, cookware and tableware etc. from ours, and charged us to use them. She generously included the use of the household appliances in our rent. It wasn't until I was 21 and my sister was 19 that enough people had told us this whole arrangement was unhinged that we finally snapped out of it. We moved out together and have stopped paying our mom, or even contacting her at all. I'm glad you and your sister finally moved out. People like this amaze me. Why even have children? You didn't ask to be brought into this world. You owe her nothing. Did a mom have to pay back her mom, Opie's grandmother, for being raised? What kind of insane logic is this? Cripple your kids with debt from day dot is a surefire way to teach them good monetary skills later in life? Or just straight up so obsessed with money they charge everyone and anyone? Wait to set an example. Right, it seems she needs to be met with the same type of treatment. Speak to a lawyer and find out how much roughly you could sue her for damages to your mental health and emotional well-being. You did not ask to be born, nor did you ask for any presents or other things she bought. Go through the list and work out how much the therapy would be to put right the mental anguish she has caused you over the years. Find out what your state says she should provide you with for the 18 years, and find out where you stand exactly. Then present a united front to her with a parcel of documents for her to digest at her leisure. I would put money on the fact it could be over the $1 million mark. Watch her face fold and tell her to have a nice life. We will call it even. Every time she has said things like that, she has taken a toll on your health, and within the law, she could be made to pay. The last thing she would expect is that. I wish you both a lovely life the heck away from her negative crap. We don't have enough money to sue, and she knows that. She's a lawyer, so I can't imagine a world where we'd win this kind of lawsuit against her.